So the first sort of topic we're going to cover is sort of personal development. And I'll ask these questions. It's not rigid. We don't have to stick to this sort of process. Obviously, I'm learning as well about this whole podcast scenario. But if there's any sort of other areas or things you want to discuss, please feel free to do so. But the first question I have here, Daryl, to sort of put or pose to you is, why are we discussing personal development in a self-reliance podcast? Why is that so important, do you think, in terms of self-reliance?
You know, Chris, I found that the most difficult of all your questions, and it was the very first one. So, for personal development has been a huge part of my life, and as it became increasingly important for me, it actually impacted on self-reliance in a major way. Because as I became more aware of my personal development needs, there was an escalation into actually wanting to work for myself, look after myself financially, physically, mentally, spiritually, all those kind of things. But it actually escalated so much so that it actually brought me to the conclusion that the best place that personal development will bring you to will be that you will become self-reliant because of your personal development. As you study the gospel, as you understand those principles of self-reliance, personal development fits in well with that own journey. Ultimately, to me, making the decision in 2013 that I didn't want to rely on another employer. I needed to rely on me. And that's where my personal development journey brought me to, is that they were so kind of inseparably connected. I don't know if that makes any sense, but there was a real journey for me that as my personal development grew and my understanding of self and understanding of where I could be, there was a natural sort of development that I wanted to be much more self-reliant, even for myself, for my career, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much. So in terms of personal development, and I suppose we've all got room to develop, we've all got, I suppose, a mandate to develop and grow and progress and become as much as we can. How do we sort of get started with that, do you think, Daryl? How can we get that focus or that commencement or start with personal development?
So for me, my personal development, I guess, as a member of the church, we are encouraged a lot of the times to improve ourselves and to develop ourselves and develop our skills. For me, it started way back in 1977, Chris. I was 12, and my mother on Christmas Day, 1977, gave me. I think you've heard this story before. She gave me a little diary, and in that it was the Let's schoolboy diary from 1978. And that what happened was, come January the 1st, 1978, I started to write in that little diary. Subsequently, I've written a page a day in a diary for, what's that, 43 years now. I've got some 46 personal diaries, personal journals, and one of them here, I've got my 2021 here. So typically, I write a page a day. That's the first thing I do every morning. But because for my personal development, I guess, started because I kept a journal. And as you start to reflect every day, you start to recognize there are some gaps in your life, because reflection helps you to understand who you are and what you want to become. And when you start to identify those gaps, you start to recognize that there are lots of things you can do about developing yourself. So for me, it was a very personal thing. My journals can inspire me to pick up that sort of personal development angle. And for others, it'll be lots of different things. They may stumble across a book. They might see a program on the TV. They might be watching, I don't know, National Geographic, or say an article in a newspaper or something online, and it might just spark something, an interest in someone. For me, it was journals that was the kind of the initial kickoff. There you go.
Thank you. So, why is personal development so important, maybe for you and for others, Daryl? Why is it so important?
So for me, there's several things on that one, Chris. It really helps. Number one, it helps to build confidence. It really helps you to kind of recognize just that it builds confidence by taking you out of your comfort zone into your stretch zone. There's always lots of new things to learn and do and create. So taking you out of your comfort zone, and it stretches you all the time, feeling you've been stretched. And when it's in your stretch zone, that's when you start to learn and grow and develop. There's also something about personal development that helps you really connect with being much more self-aware. Self-awareness is a really important part of kind of emotional intelligence and understanding your emotions. So self-awareness for me is a huge part. Um, and frankly, it just helps you to develop strengths in all different aspects of your life. So lots of reasons why personal development is important, but probably most of all, building the confidence and stretching you into a place where you're learning and growing and developing new skills and ideas and broadening your horizons.
That's an interesting way of sort of visualizing that. I've always heard of coming out your comfort zone, but then you're going into the stretch zone. That's obviously where you're
Yeah.
growing, a little bit more uncomfortable. But like you said, that's the place I think where you stretch and grow. So thank you for doing that. Is there any specific areas of personal development that maybe we as church members or just as individuals can focus on? Is there any
Yeah.
specific thoughts or guidance you would have on specific areas of personal development?
Yeah, I think Chris, there are probably, in my experience, there are five kind of core areas that are noted down. So, and they're not in any particular order, but there's physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and social. Those were probably the key five areas where you can actually develop yourself in lots of different ways. Physically, we're going to talk, I think, a little bit more about goals. Physically, you're looking after yourself, exercise and dieting and all that kind of thing. Mental awareness, there's mental health has been a massive issue during the lockdown. And so being constantly aware of interacting with others, which connects with the social aspects of life. That emotional well-being as well has been a huge strain for people over this last year. And then the spiritual development, there's lots of just phenomenal resources online, conference talks, our daily scripture study. All of those things can add to a much more rounded individual as we look at those five areas. So for me, it would be physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and social. And when you think about the self-reliance manuals and My Path and the resources that are there, they're very well balanced in a lot of those areas. But personal development links into all of them.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And my last question I wanted to kind of pose to you on this
Yeah,
is, as we've maybe focusing on those areas, we're kind of, from you about how important it is, that stretch zone,
yeah.
um, how it helps us become, I suppose, more self-reliant. How do we know when we're improving? Is there anything we can measure to know we're improving or we're stretching, or have you any guidance or thoughts on that at all?
Can we know? That's an interesting one too. I think you'll probably get some feedback, direct feedback from others. Oh, you're looking good. You've been losing weight. you might feel you might feel a bit stronger in yourself. You can go a little bit, walk a little further. You feel a little stronger in yourself. So physically, there's some things like that. Spiritually, I think it comes down to being a bit more confident with your knowledge of the scriptures, being more confident to maybe share something of a spiritual nature, and maybe you feel a bit more. It might be a bit easier to do some missionary work or share something with a friend. There's simple little things that you'll start to observe yourself, but also from feedback from others. Um, on the emotional and the mental side, it might be around that you're just feeling a little bit healthier and better and more aware, more centered, more balanced. You might feel more of a prompting to take some walks and just interact with others in a different way. So I think it's just looking, being very observant, Chris, to actually seeing and listening to what's going on around you. People will say things or make a comment, but you need to listen and see and hear. And if you do those things and take some time to actually just observe, you'll start to see things actually for yourself. And if we're talking a little bit about goals in a moment or two, but you may want also to keep some kind of record of things. So in my journals, I record how I am changing, how I feel I'm changing, or I might ask myself questions, and there's some observable things. Even my wife Monique will say something that might be, oh yeah, and I know consciously I've been working on something. So it's just been observing, seeing, and listening.
Very good. Just while you were saying listening there, something popped into my head. I saw something on LinkedIn that sort of struck a chord with me, that it says, when you're speaking, I'll paraphrase it slightly, when you're speaking, you're only talking about the things that you already know. But when you're listening, you might actually hear or learn something you don't know. So I thought that was very interesting, because we all kind of want to speak and get our point of view across and things, but you know, really listening, I think we can learn new things. And like you said, being maybe a little bit more self-aware. Listen, that's fantastic. Thanks very much for sharing that, Daryl. I think that